Have you ever stopped to think about why fountains exist in almost every major city square around the world? They're not just decorative pieces or places where tourists toss coins and make wishes. The truth is, public fountains and communal water points have shaped the way our cities developed, influenced where people gathered, and even determined which neighborhoods thrived and which ones didn't. Today, we're diving into the fascinating story of how something as simple as access to water transformed urban life as we know it. Stick around because what you're about to discover will change the way you look at every fountain you pass. Let's start thousands of years ago. Ancient civilizations understood something fundamental. Wherever water flows, people follow. The Romans were absolute masters at this. They built elaborate aqueduct systems that transported water from distant mountains into their cities, and at the heart of every neighborhood stood a public fountain. These weren't luxury items. They were survival infrastructure. Most people didn't have running water in their homes, so the communal fountain became the beating heart of daily life. Women would gather there in the morning to collect water for cooking and cleaning. Men would stop by to water their animals. Children would play nearby while their parents chatted with neighbors. Without even trying, these water points became the original social networks, places where information flowed as freely as the water itself. Fast forward to medieval Europe, and you'll find that cities were built around their fountains. City planners weren't thinking about aesthetics or tourism. They were thinking about survival and organization. A neighborhood without a fountain was essentially uninhabitable. The location of these water sources determined property values, influenced trade routes, and even affected social hierarchies. Wealthy families positioned their homes closer to fountains, while poorer residents had to walk longer distances. This created an urban structure that, in many European cities, you can still observe today. But here's where the story gets really interesting. As cities grew during the Industrial Revolution, something unexpected happened. The very fountains that had brought communities together for centuries began to disappear. Why? Because cities started installing indoor plumbing. For the first time in human history, people could access water without leaving their homes. This was incredible progress for public health and convenience, but it came with an unintended consequence. Without communal water points, neighbors stopped having daily touch points. The accidental social encounters that happened at fountains, the casual conversations, the community bonds formed while waiting in line, all of that began to fade. Urban planners eventually noticed something was missing. Cities became more efficient but less connected. By the mid-20th century, something remarkable started happening. Cities began reintroducing fountains, but now with a completely different purpose. They weren't about water access anymore. They were about creating what designers call third places, spaces that aren't home, and aren't work where people can simply exist together. Modern urban design has embraced fountains as essential tools for building community. Walk through any thoughtfully designed city today, and you'll notice fountains positioned strategically in parks, plazas, and pedestrian areas. They serve as landmarks, meeting points, and gathering spaces. The sound of flowing water masks urban noise pollution, creating pockets of tranquility in otherwise chaotic environments. Studies have shown that people naturally congregate around water features, even when they don't consciously realize they're doing it. There's something primal about our attraction to water, something hardwired into us from our evolutionary past. Cities like Paris and Zurich have taken this concept even further by installing extensive networks of drinking water fountains throughout their urban landscapes. Paris alone has over 1,000 public water fountains, called Wallace fountains, that provide free drinking water to anyone who needs it. This isn't just about convenience. It's about making cities more inclusive and accessible. A person can spend an entire day exploring Paris without spending a cent on water, making the city more welcoming to people of all economic backgrounds. The sustainability aspect of modern public fountains is equally compelling. Every time someone refills a reusable bottle at a public fountain instead of buying bottled water, that's one less plastic bottle produced, transported, and eventually discarded. Cities that have invested in public water infrastructure report significant reductions in plastic waste. In urban areas with hot climates, public fountains also serve as crucial public health infrastructure, helping prevent dehydration and heat-related illnesses, especially among vulnerable populations like elderly residents and people experiencing homelessness. But perhaps the most innovative development in fountain design is their evolution into interactive public art. Contemporary urban designers are creating water features that respond to movement, change with the seasons, or incorporate light and sound elements. These aren't just fountains. They're experiences. Children splash through water jets that activate when they run past. Adults pause to photograph illuminated water displays that shift colors at sunset. These interactive features transform passive observers into active participants, creating memorable experiences that draw people back repeatedly. The cultural significance of fountains varies dramatically across different societies, but their core function remains remarkably consistent. In Middle Eastern cities, public fountains often feature intricate geometric patterns and calligraphy, reflecting Islamic artistic traditions. In Asian cities, water features frequently incorporate principles of feng shui and harmony with nature. In Latin American plazas, fountains often serve as focal points for festivals and celebrations. Despite these cultural differences, every tradition recognizes that water has power to bring people together. There's also an unexpected economic angle to the story. Neighborhoods with well-designed public spaces, including fountains and water features, consistently show higher property values and increased foot traffic for local businesses. When people feel comfortable lingering in a public space, they're more likely to visit nearby shops, cafes, and restaurants. Urban developers have figured this out, which is why new mixed-use developments almost always incorporate water features into their designs. It's not just about aesthetics. It's about creating destinations that people want to visit and revisit. The future of public fountains is evolving in fascinating directions. Cities are experimenting with sustainable technologies like solar-powered pumps and water recycling systems that minimize waste. Some municipalities are installing smart fountains that adjust their operation based on weather conditions, foot traffic, and even air quality measurements. Designers are also exploring how fountains can serve multiple functions, incorporating seating areas, shade structures, and even urban gardens around water features. Climate change is adding new urgency to conversations about urban water features. As cities face more frequent heat waves, public fountains and water points are being recognized as critical climate adaptation infrastructure. They provide cooling effects through evaporation, offer relief to overheated residents, and create microclimates that make outdoor spaces more tolerable during extreme temperatures. The story of public fountains is ultimately a story about how cities evolved to meet human needs, both practical and social. From ancient Rome to modern Singapore, from medieval town squares to contemporary urban parks, these water points have served as gathering places, conversation starters, and community anchors. They remind us that good urban design isn't just about buildings and roads. It's about creating spaces where human connection can flourish naturally. What started as basic survival infrastructure, providing water for drinking and washing, transformed into social infrastructure that shapes how communities interact and how cities function. The fountains you pass every day carry this entire history within them. They're descendants of ancient gathering places, survivors of the industrial age, and pioneers of sustainable urban design. Next time you encounter a public fountain, take a moment to observe it differently. Notice who gathers around it, listen to the conversations happening nearby, watch how children interact with it. You're witnessing thousands of years of urban evolution playing out in real time. So here's my question for you. What just the most memorable fountain or public water feature you've ever encountered? Was it the Trevi Fountain in Rome? A simple drinking fountain that saved you on a hot day, or maybe a splash pad where you watched kids playing? Drop your answer in the comments below because I genuinely want to know your stories. And if you enjoyed this journey through urban history and want to explore more curious routes through the stories that shaped our world, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Trust me, we've got so many more fascinating stories waiting for you. Until next time, keep staying curious, and I'll see you on the next route.